Oh, hang on. Hang on. Go. Okay, go.
Good morning, Adam, and
Yeah.
welcome
Good
to
morning.
Automatic Mouth.
Brrr. Hello.
I was just sitting here looking at our pictures. I'm obviously in white and you're in black, both sporting the t-shirts, the glasses. But I was thinking, that Spy versus Spy? Do you remember that from the old, is it Mad Comics?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I'm going like way back now, way back.
That is long back, yeah.
No. Do you remember the Mad Comics? I don't know if you do remember ever looking at them, but the back page, you used to always be able to fold in and you'd get a completely different picture.
I do. Yes, I do.
I just had this flat, as soon as I saw us in black and
What a
white,
great
I thought
metaphor.
Spy versus Spy. And yeah, being able to look at a picture and with, it was one, is it concertina, where you sort of fold it in like a fan? You do this one fold in it and it shows a completely different outcome to that picture.
Big
So
time.
cool.
So cool.
So interesting that I only realized then, once I saw the black and white, it was a visual anchor.
Yes.
It connected, as soon as I saw the black and white shirts, it connected to a memory, which is what anchors are. So let's talk about anchors.
Yeah. One of my faves.
We both are like, such
Everyone's
a cool
like,
thing.
what the hell? What's an anchor?
What do you mean anchors?
What is an anchor?
Are we going sailing? Are we talking ships? What are we doing?
Well,
no. Anchors, though, and well, let's go the actual definition. Let's do that first, right?
Okay. Good idea.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Here's what I prepared earlier. Anytime a person is in an associated intense state, if at the peak of that experience, a specific stimulus is applied, then the two will be linked neurologically. Now, from this, what I want to say first is maybe unpopular opinion incoming, triggers and anchors are the same thing.
Mm.
So when we talk about anchors, it responds, I guess it's set up in our body the same way as triggers are. The slight difference, if I want to call it that then, is I consider triggers to be more unconscious. So the stimulus and the event was perhaps something out of your control. So it's more of an unconscious trigger. Something happens and it recalls a memory that perhaps you don't want to recall. But can also be positive triggers as well, just like we had then. The black and white t-shirts triggered a memory for me, and it was a really fun one. I'm like, oh, God, yeah, I remember that. And it was really cool. So trigger tends to be more unconscious, whereas an anchor, the way we talk about it, Adam, is more intentional. We're setting up an intentional trigger called an anchor, so that we can get into a state of mind and physiology to suit what we want to do.
Yeah.
So if we're about to go into a good example to use at this point is sports, isn't it? There are lots of sports people who have intentional anchors that they use prior to performing or competing, that puts their mindset in a state and their body in a state where they're envisioning the win and they're ready to go. So that's a very intentional trigger, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Which is what we call an anchor. One of my favorite ones is I was watching Olympics. I'm going to say it was the Olympics, might have been Commonwealth Games. I don't know. It was weightlifting though.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the Aussie guys, he was with his coach getting ready to go out and do this massive lift. It was a record sort of lift. and he's standing there, they're having sort of fat chats, and then all of a sudden he starts slapping himself on the chest, just a few times on the chest, and then he did his elbows, which seems a really weird place. The chest, you can understand, they put a bit of powder on there and it pumps them up. And what was with the elbows? And the commentator explained that that's actually that the sports person's coach is NLP trained and had helped the sports person apply anchors to their elbows that invoked and set off this I'm invincible kind of
chain reaction.
Chain reaction, yeah. I'm invincible. No one can stop me. I'm so strong. I'm unstoppable. All these really powerful words and feelings and emotions, and anchored them all to his elbows. And so then I started watching, and every time he was about to go and do something, he would slap his elbows a couple of times, and then you can see his whole physiology just change, and he was ready. And he went out there and he smashed it.
Amazing.
So that's it's so cool to think we can have that kind of power over ourselves. Yeah.
Oh, massively.
Yeah.
Yeah, massively.
So I wrote down what comes to mind for me when I think about anchors. The first one of my strongest anchors is music. You hear, a certain song on the radio or whatever in the shopping centre. They play some good music in the shops.
They do.
A lot of my family
intentionally as well sometimes.
Intentionally, do not get that twisted. It's to make you feel a certain way, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Quite a number of my family members, though, have worked for, a number of years in the retail industry. And so whilst I might go into the store and think, oh my God, you must love this. This music is banging.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, it was the first day.
Yeah.
Hearing the same crap all day for months on end gets me mad.
Yeah. They're like, oh, it just puts me into work mode.
Yeah. And that's the funny thing, isn't it? That they can you can hear that same song then, at home on the TV or something, and straight away they might change their mindset. It might be like, oh God, I hate this song, work, ugh.
Mm-hmm.
So straight away, unconsciously, they've been triggered to be more in a mindset and have the emotions of being at work simply because of that song.
A million percent, yeah. And that's kind of unintentional. They've unintentionally ended up with an unconscious reaction to a place, a time, a feeling, all of that stuff that goes with it. Have you seen the Netflix TV show The Sinner?
Yes, I have. That was so good.
So good. I just started rewatching it recently. And the first series is all about a lady that randomly just goes up and stabs someone to death murders a guy on the beach. And it turns out, long story short, that there was a certain song playing that triggered her, and she didn't have a clue what she was doing. She just stabbed the dude in the same stabbing pattern that had happened when she was trying to save her sister towards the end of it. I'm trying not to spoil it for everybody.
I know, spoilers.
Spoiler alert, sorry. But
a song was playing when a traumatic event happened.
Yes, and became an anchor for her to trigger, a defensive, protective response. And I mean, as an NLP junkie watching that, I was like, oh, look at that,
Yeah.
So these things they trigger, and the unconscious, like you're talking about, can be positive or a negative. So anybody that's listening, if it's very important to be aware of your triggers, what have you been anchored to, If you're NLP trained, you can purposely anchor people to stuff. That's why when someone's going through stuff, the natural response is be like, "Oh, let me give you a hug," but you'll be anchoring someone.
Yeah.
You'll be anchoring all the negativity to a hug.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can't touch any. When they're going through stuff, you've got to change the state and then anchor. It's a fascinating. I mean, when I first learned all about it, I was like, "What the f you, da da da." How powerful is it?
What is this magic?
Absolutely. Well, it is. It is actually magic when you
It
think about
feels like it. Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
It really is. It's so anyone that's listening out there, if you are having a response to something, um, what is the trigger? Is it
Mm,
a date in time?
mm.
Is it um, you know, a smell in a house that's always happen? That if someone's always baking around and it's been happening around a negative thing, you think baking cakes would be a lovely thing, but I mean, it can also be skewed the other way if
Well,
something.
that's the interesting thing about smell, Adam, is that smells actually has the strongest connection in the brain, strongest connection to the hippocampus, which is a large part of our brain that's responsible for memory storage. So out of all of our senses, smell is the one most likely to trigger a memory because it's like this, super highway between the olfactory nerves and the hippocampus. It's a straight line. So that's why smell can be such a powerful trigger. I know for myself earlier on in my NLP journey, I never really placed it all together. My stepfather was a very, very heavy smoker. And so anytime I was near, and obviously there was, not obviously, there was a lot of bad events, let's say, around my stepfather. So anytime as an adult that I was near someone and caught that smell of smoke on their clothes, on their person, I immediately considered that person to be a bad person. I didn't want to be near them. I wanted to move away from them. It triggered in me a physiological response that had nothing to do with common sense. I didn't know the person.
Yeah.
And yet I could feel myself just wanting to get away from them, not wanting to engage. And you can see how that can cause issues, if you're standing in a bus or you're working with someone or life in general. And so I had to, when I learned about anchors, I'm like, oh, that's what that is. It's simply, I had an unintentional anchor from a traumatic event. And
so how did one change the anchor?
Well, actually, yes, I did I changed that anchor by first recognizing that it is an anchor. That's like you said, the first thing you have to become is aware, don't you?
Awareness,
Yeah, the physiological response that's happening as a result of that cue or trigger. Yeah. And so then once you've got that and you can understand that, then you can either set up a different anchor, like a positive anchor, to link with that instead. I could set up a positive anchor to link with the smell of cigarette if I want. However, for me, to be honest, once I did timeline therapy and factored that in, it was no longer a trigger for me anyway.
Yes, so you call it collapsing.
Yeah, I guess, I didn't go down that track with this. So, but yes, you can do collapsing anchors and things like that too.
If it's more immediate, but actually if you just keep heaping more positive and change the reaction and consciously make those associations, it'll go over the top of the old anchor anyway.
Exactly, because as you said, those unintentional anchors are unconscious.
Yes.
And once you have awareness and make it conscious,
Yeah,
you're taking the power out of it, aren't you? So
absolutely. I've been working with a guy recently who's got to the point where he could only um, engage in fun activities of a rude nature, let's just say,
ah,
um, when off his chops and high on, so like
yeah,
the chemsex drug sex culture.
yeah,
And he got to he was just like, well, I can't be physically intimate with someone unless I'm high. So he's associated that feeling, that process, like, okay, I'm gonna have, fun escapades of a rude nature with someone now, and right, I'm gonna get off my chops, and there's a process to do it.
mm,
Um, but then has has lost all capacity for or connection to all ways of connecting with someone in that way when sober, and what a shame.
yeah,
You're actually missing out on the natural body
natural,
producing the natural high of
yeah,
banging someone.
yeah,
It's like, and that it's actually better when you think about it.
yeah,
Um, so we've been going through a real process to do that, and it's actually the same. It's the same thing. These processes or the feeling of a need to chemically change something to get to a certain spot that you used to get there anyway.
mm,
When you first do those kinds of things, it's like, whoa, because it is a whole other high. But
yeah,
um, if you don't monitor it, and the world we live in now is, I mean, it's rife, it's everywhere. Everyone's getting battered and banging.
yeah, yeah.
It's the same process. It's addiction. That can.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And it's about that. When even when you talk about addiction, you you start looking at, okay, well, what's the cue? Which is exactly what we're talking about. It's the anchor or the trigger. What
Yeah,
sets it off? What starts the process?
yeah. Something happened.
Yeah.
You go down a road that took you to a place of feeling better about a situation or someone or blah, blah,
Mm.
blah, and then you became addicted to it because going down that road was easier and felt better than dealing with the thing that was causing the trauma.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, so simplify it. We'll bring it back to the cue or the trigger or the anchor, and we'll put it really simplify it. Say someone, you yourself can be not or you yourself, Adam, or
Oh,
someone else
I've
listening
lived.
says, oh, I always get stuck in the scroll hole, on social media. You just get stuck scrolling, 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 scrolling.
Scroll hole. I love it.
Yeah. Where did it start? So for a lot of people, you can either go right back to something like boredom, because they're so used to people who multitask a lot they really struggle with silence and doing nothing, because their brain has been wired now to need to be busy, not productive, busy.
Yes,
And
and that's a good
so,
distinction. Yeah.
yeah. So the minute that they are not busy and haven't got a million tasks to do, the boredom sets in. They feel like they're not doing anything, so they pick up their phone. For other people, the anchor or the trigger could be that they hear the phone vibrates, like they get a message, something, makes a ding on the phone. And instead of picking it up, looking at the message and maybe just putting it back down again, oh, I'll get to that later. That's the trigger. They picked their phone up now. They've checked the message. Oh, well, while I'm here.
Yeah.
And next
And
minute,
and unconsciously, because I
yeah,
was having this conversation the other day with someone. I noticed that every time I pick up my phone, it will be a standard process, step by step, of which app I check first, what I do. So Facebook will get opened, what are the notifications, anything there? No. Instagram, anything, blah, blah, blah. Have a little flick. Yeah, then other apps. So it's like
let's
it's,
not talk
it
about.
becomes yeah, it becomes a habit, right?
Yeah,
Um, so if we're not aware of these things, it just becomes a routine, a program, a process that we're sort of running through. And like you said, once we're aware of it, then it's like, oh, okay, so you can make better choices and decide to do something different, change the anchor.
Yeah, change the anchor. That's
Change
right.
the
If you
anchor.
don't like the outcome, if the habit itself is something you want to change,
Yeah,
there's no point in starting at the back end and, saying, well, don't do that. Don't scroll. That's not going to work. You have to
no,
go back to what started the process, which is the trigger or the anchor.
yeah.
That's where you make the change.
And make the
And
so right. So like you said, language rather than don't scroll. Your brain isn't listening to don't.
yeah,
Um, so you have to change the whole notion altogether. Instead of saying don't scroll, say I'm going to do blah.
mm,
So don't acknowledge the scrolling. Just say I'm going to brush my teeth. I'm going to go and brush my teeth now, and then afterwards I'm going to get into bed, turn the lights off.
mm,
It's a whole other behavior process. You don't acknowledge even that scrolling exists,
yeah,
you know. And I talk from experience of very recent times of having to make these decisions because we're all human and it's a very real thing, which is why I was talking about it the other day. Like, oh, why can't I go to sleep? Because you're scrolling for hours on your phone, you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
And that behaviour has really manifested in the last couple of months since I moved. Because before I used to go and I'd get up and go and sit in my study and do work, and that was the thing to exacerbate the insomnia.
yeah.
Now it's lying in the dark staring at my phone. Not anymore. You have to actively change the behaviour and collapse the anger that way, basically.
Yeah, 100%. So another aspect of anchors, which I think is really cool to talk about, and this will be sort of a bit on your jam as well, Adam, the way your gorgeous brain thinks, is how much anchoring is used in advertising.
That's what it is.
Can I just say, from your sharp intake of breath and the way your face just changed then, it's like you got a little anchoring chubby right there. When I said
An anchor chubby.
an anchor chubby,
I
when
got
we
a chubby anchor over here. Ah,
talk about anchoring in advertising, and Adam's like, you have my attention.
I'm in.
So I'll start with the simple stuff, okay, Adam, and then you can bring home some cool stuff as well. I always think about anchoring in advertising very basically, that you can be sitting, on the couch watching some TV and really just, quite happy, enjoying life and whatnot. And then a fast food commercial will come on and they use the same jingle. And all of a sudden, you hear the jingle, you know the sound, then you see the ad and you turn to your partner and say, should we get some takeaway? You be peckish.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't 2 minutes ago, and suddenly now, yes,
I
I'm
need chicken
ravenous.
nuggets and fries and a large milkshake.
Yes,
Yeah.
let's get on that app because my phone just dinged. I'll just pick up my phone and order it and get, Uber delivery, whatever.
Yeah.
And so that is very intentional, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, on the same subject, when you think about it, if I hummed this, or well, I just won't do it. Did somebody say menu log? That it's the
Yeah.
standard thing. As soon as you hear it, you go, yes, I am hungry. All of a sudden, I ate 10 minutes ago, but fuck it, I'm going to order some more.
But isn't there a cheesecake shop around here? Yeah, you
Um,
start thinking about
really
what can
is.
they bring me? Yeah.
On Tuesday, I visited a very famous Golden Arches burger restaurant, and I said to I ate half of the meal as usual, so I order way too much every single time. I
Mm.
would get a double Big Mac, extra cheese, extra sauce, large fries, strawberry milkshake, and then just before I click the button, I'll get a triple cheeseburger as well. Silly. When you're going through the drive-through, you're like, yeah, I'll just have blah blah blah. And you go, oh, and okay, 20 nuggets, yeah, and maybe a little chicken wrap too. I'll eat the chicken wrap whilst I'm opening the other food. And but you don't necessarily eat it. But they're like you said, the power of all of this stuff
Yeah.
and the processes that are built in, it's all meticulously worked out just to, I mean, yes, to make you buy more food. And, that's why we're fat. Or that's,
Yeah.
when you think about
Well,
it.
no, it is. It's why we have that issue.
Yeah.
And even down to the
The
color,
other reason, obviously, but, it's a contributing factor.
even down to color is an anchor. And so you will notice a lot of fast food outlets will use red in their advertising, because red is the color of, that foundational survival base needs of
Right. So it triggers,
food.
I need chicken.
Yes, I must eat.
I must
But it
survive.
triggers that in I must survive. I must have the Big Mac.
If I don't have nuggets, I will die.
Yes. On a very primal level. And remember, there is, some of the oldest parts of our brain that are connected with our survival mode. And because everything is symbolic and our brain understands things in symbols, we see colors, we hear jingles, they're all symbols. And if it's connected with things like the color red, then there's a primal urge in our body to say, wow, I've got to survive here. So, we must eat. Morning tea, second breakfast,
right.
people.
And obviously, disclaimer, just in case we bring down the revenue of every single takeaway restaurant in the world. No intentional injury was ever meant in this conversation, and no restaurants have been specifically mentioned.
No, none at all. It's thank you for that, putting a little disclaimer in there.
Disclaimer.
Well, we're not going to get any. What's that? What's the word? What am I talking about? Sponsorship. We're not going to.
Maybe not.
Maybe not.
Yeah, I mean, the truth is, am I going to miss a drive-through later this afternoon? Probably not. I'll probably still do it myself, but it's because I enjoy the food. It's not because of the anchors.
Yeah, exactly. You didn't trigger me.
Yeah,
I'm too strong for that.
there are no anchors here.
It's, like we said at the beginning, though, in all of this, it's about awareness, self-awareness.
Yes.
It's not to beat yourself up. It's not to beat any companies up. Everyone's doing their own thing.
Yes.
It's about you becoming aware of, okay, what's the reason I'm doing this thing? If I'm not liking doing this habit or this action, where did it start? What triggered it?
Exactly. And the distinction there is, it's not something makes you do something.
Yeah.
That's never the case. It's we've associated something to, or we've allowed blah 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 to happen because we want that dopamine or to cause that reaction. That's how that process happens. So it's not like, well, that restaurant made me eat it. No, you've just associated that with something else, isn't it?
Yeah.
So let's get back to your point. Absolutely. Just to sort of
until you change the outcome that you want, because that's the truth about it, isn't it? That a strategy you put in place or a process that you have,
yes,
you're going to keep repeating it, because if you're really honest with yourself, the initial outcome is what you want.
Yeah.
So if you take going to a fast food place because you're really hungry and you just want that quick, like, just give me that real quick.
You want that first suck on the straw of the shake.
That is what you're chasing.
Yes.
It's only after the fact that you might be sitting there and, some conscious guilt crap, creeps in or the gut ache or something. And you think, oh God, I have regret.
Yeah.
It's then that's the time to decide, well, I chose that decision based on, like you said, a connection that I've made.
Yeah.
Do I want to change this or not?
Yeah.
Because only you can do it. So then you go back to the initial, what you were chasing in the first place, and work out how to give yourself a different outcome that still meets the need, right?
Big time, yeah. And it applies to, I mean, we've ended up talking about fast food restaurants, but it applies to relationships, like, are we holding on to a friendship for some reason because we get XYZ feeling? one of my friends recently is living with a housemate who's basically dictating to him who he can have visit. You know, they share the rent and all that, but this housemate goes nuts if he has a visitor, and all. It's like, you pay half the bills. What the hell? You know, what the hell? Yeah, but so why do you tolerate that behaviour? Oh well, you know, and it was all linked to previous things and all that kind of stuff. And he all of a sudden was like, "Oh my God, yeah." It's like, yeah, you pay half the bills. You know, if he wants that privilege, just say, "Great, you pay the rent then."
Yeah,
Benefit for you, but you know, now he's making choices and changing that and setting boundaries. You know, so you cut it off altogether or not. Stop buying the milkshakes and the burgers, or monitor it. You know, it applies to everything, doesn't it? Smoking,
exactly.
yeah, the whole thing.
The whole lot, awareness of it, and then making a conscious decision.
Yeah,
You know, the outcomes that we get are 100% a result of the choices we make.
100%.
And whilst you can, forgive isn't the right word, you'll know what I mean though, Adam. You know, if it's unconscious initially, like, yes, you can't change what you can't see, right? And so a habit or something might be keep repeating a pattern. Relationships is a good one for that. Until someone points it out, or you see it yourself, or you work with a coach or something, and you can see the pattern repeating, then there's no excuses then.
Yeah.
From there on, you're choosing to repeat the pattern.
Yes.
So let's get rid of the guilt. If you're repeating the pattern, you're choosing that, then own it and move on with your life. However, if you're not happy with it, you, just as you had the power to keep repeating that pattern, you've got the power to change the pattern as well.
Absolutely.
Change the anchor. There's so much out there, isn't there? There's so many tools we can use.
So many tools.
Oh,
And we you know, always having a shameless plug, we teach all of this stuff, right? You know,
yeah,
so if anyone's interested in this, you know, come see us. Absolutely.
absolutely. Come and learn your neurology code. Work out how all these bits and pieces all come together. And I have nothing to say after that. I lost my language.
Yeah. Well, nothing more to say. It's
Nothing more to say.
be the
So,
best thing that anyone ever did. Well, it's certainly the best thing I ever did. Yeah.
well, you and I, before we sort of jumped on here today, hey, we were talking about really how NLP, once we started learning it, how much it changed the way. Well, I know personally, I never looked at the world the same way again.
Never ever.
And
Never ever.
it gave me so much, when I say like self, personal power, I mean more the power to, just as you've got the power to say when something goes pear-shaped, I can put my hand up and go, yeah, that wasn't my best work. Yeah, I made some bad
Yeah.
judgments there. Okay, no worries. I'm gonna shift, I'm gonna change a few things, and you better believe I'm gonna go again. And then you go again and it goes smashingly.
Yeah.
You can put your hand up again and say, yeah, I did that. That was all me.
Yeah.
Check me out.
And unselfishly, and you know, without all the negative stuff, it's like, yeah, I did, and be proud.
Yes, right. Oh, it's
That
just,
feeling of being proud of yourself is, well, there's nothing like it on earth.
it's a good feeling, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. So
All right.
that was anchoring. That was a bit of a play with anchoring and a bit of a chit chat. I enjoyed it. Did you enjoy it, Adam?
Something, of course, always standard response. Love it.
Yeah. Oh, really? I know you loved it. However, what you loved more was your chubby anchor.
Oh,
Truth there.
yes, I shall have to go and deal with the chubby anchor shortly. Not really. Don't think
Have
about
an, have an amazing week. And
Thanks, darling, and you.
we'll be
And
back.
same time. See you next Friday.
See you next Friday, Gorge. Mwah.
Later.
Bye.
Bye.